The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and if you like to attend our meetings, they're the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to nashuagop.org to see our website and learn about the events that we have.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and help me welcome Dennis Hogan, our county attorney. Dennis, thank you for coming for the interview. You're running again for, which is the term now, or the third?
This would be my third consecutive term, but it'll be the fourth term overall.
Overall.
Yeah.
Okay, and as district attorney, you have quite a lot of things happening, I guess, from what I read in the paper.
Well, that's true. There's a lot going on.
What's your biggest issue now, and how do you see it going forward?
I think our biggest issue right now is dealing with the speed and volume at which the court and the legislature has sort of arranged things that we have to do them, with this thing called felonies first, which takes away felonies from sort of doing a stop off at the circuit court and spending some time there before they would be what they call bound over to the Superior Court, when we would get them maybe 90 days after the crime was committed. So the logic of this was that if a person, it's almost the same logic when you're being told how to discipline your children, that quick and sure discipline is the best, most effective. So it's almost that same logic, that they're saying, we want you to, the felony prosecutors, which are in my office, we want them to have the file as quickly as possible. So the next day after they've been arrested, if they've been arrested, they and they're being held on bail, they brought to the court, and we have a bail hearing. We actually file complaints at that point. So that has increased the amount of work we're doing, because in the past, when it would take that stop off at the circuit court courts would deal some of the stuff away. For example, there's something we call theft thirds. If you already have two either felony or misdemeanor A thefts on your record, and you have a third, any kind of theft, it's a felony. So a person can, and this happens a lot in Manchester, it seems like, a person wanders into a market basket, steals a Coke, or puts some bacon in their pants. These are the kind of things we see. That's a small thing, right? You would think, well, that's misdemeanor level stuff. Well, they look at their record. They look at their record. It's their third time doing it, or more than third time, and boom, it's a felony. Now, with a felony, you're facing 3.5 to 7 years on that, but they're not going to get that. So, and they knew that in the circuit court, so they would say, well, listen, we'll deal with you this way, and we'll give you something that maybe gets you the help you need, or whatever it was. You could do it quickly. The person probably wasn't somebody who was going to hem and haw a lot and take a lot of time. And so it was now that's coming to my office. And so we are developing our strategy to deal with it in much the same way. And that's taking some time and taking some effort, and smoothing that out and making that happen.
So it's more work for your people than
it is more work. Yeah, maybe that individual file isn't more work, but because you've increased the volume that's coming to us, in the aggregate, it's more work to my office. And of course, then there's the whole opioid crisis, which, in addition to what was happening with felonies first, then you have that being added on, which we're going to come to us anyway, because again, to give you an example, one pill. You're not supposed to have that pill. You don't have a prescription for that pill, but it's a scheduled opiate, or any scheduled drugs. Something that the federal government puts out a schedule, whatever. If it's a scheduled drug, that's a felony, because you don't have a prescription. You're not supposed to have it. But how much? Again, possible prison time in years that you're facing. Well, if it's the first time we found you with a pill like that, the chances of a judge giving you any kind of prison time are nil. It's just not going to happen. They're going to look at your record. They're going to look at a record and say, this person's never been in trouble before. It's one pill. I mean, is there anybody in the whole state who wants somebody who's with those facts to get prison time? I think the answer is no. And yet we have a statute system that says they're supposed to.
Yeah.
So those, again, the circuit courts would look at those, in that 90 days approximately, that they would be sort of held up at circuit court as they did what they needed to do with it, and they would negotiate them away. They'd say, well, how about if we give you that? You seem to, maybe you have a pill problem. Let's get you to go to LADAC and have that person evaluate you and see if there's any treatment that you need, some sort of lesson learned, and then they never come back maybe. So now we're adjusting our processes in our office, which in turn we're looking to the courts and saying, well, adjust your processes because, and so there's a guy named Dave Bennett who's helping the court, and he's sort of an advisor, guru.
Is this?
I think of him more as a guru because he reminds me of my friend who's now a yoga instructor. He used to be a car salesman, now he's a yoga instructor. I think the two remind me of each other, and they're both named Dave. And so, yeah.
Well, is the drug court really working as it was supposed to? I thought that it was supposed to be able to cut down the time dealing with these people, and you're saying it.
Well, the drug court, yeah, I think. I just looked. I happened to be looking through my desk and found the original invitation for the first drug court graduation, and I looked those people up on my system to see if they'd come back to us.
Yeah.
And the three of them are all
good.
Nothing since then.
Good.
Yeah. So those are the kind of things you want. So when we're getting people who are responsible for the burglary spree, which we had that in Nashua, where a burglary spree was people who we sent to the drug court, and they stopped doing that. Those are the kinds of things that when you add them up, if you can, the difficult thing is quantifying how much is it worth to us or, the system that we don't have a burglary. That's a very hard thing to put a dollar sign on, right? You can't, when I read about drug court before we had drug court, you could not make the case that drug court was going to save government money.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. Drug court can save us money. And when we talk about us, we're talking about the economy, society,
There's a number of different aspects.
The good feeling that you have in living in a community, because now you don't have that burglary. Now you don't have that. So in that sense, I think you can say it's working because we're seeing the people that we bring in go off and be better than they would have been. And so that's a plus.
There's no formal way, though, of keeping those statistics or analysis.
Well, you can certainly keep track of who's been in here and what are they doing now.
Yeah.
And,
and
we certainly know who's been in there. And to the extent that I've looked it up personally, I see that they're behaving better now. But it's a great. As I've always told them, those that I meet, I say, I hope you come back and help, because the money we're putting into it is a lot. We're giving you a lot, really. The taxpayers of this.
Well, I know
New Hampshire is saying actually, right now it's not just New Hampshire because the national one's being paid by the federal government. But anyway, the taxpayer is paying because it wants you to be better, and I hope you appreciate that and give back.
A chance, the
only way it's going to continue is if it kind of steamrolls and we see.
But you're right, though. We need to have this stuff to back up our arguments. You can see it generally, but you don't have the data to back up your opinion. And I think that's something that should be put, if it's not in the legislature, it should put in some place where somebody's keeping track of this, so you can whip out the data anytime you want to.
Right.
You could have justified getting another attorney, maybe.
Well, hopefully we can justify not needing another attorney. That's the real goal, isn't it?
On the long term,
yes.
Yes.
The long-term goal is to say,
but right now, you're having more people coming into these situations where they're dealing with a felony.
And our office is probably spending 2 whole days a week. 2 man days a week. Just on drug court. Right. Just on that effort.
But I think that's something that more efficiently the courts are operating. I still remember something that happened, I think, 4 years ago when they centralized the phone at the courts.
Right.
Now it's all working with less people, more effectively, and more responsive.
Yeah, I've had success as an attorney, just calling
Yeah.
those numbers and saying. Sometimes it's I want to find out this one little thing, and they say okay, well they look it up and they give it to me, or it's I need to get in touch with so and so. Oh, all right, well I'm going to put a message into that person, or I think they can even transfer me in some
Yeah.
instances to
Well, maybe if they're
right to the courtroom.
Yeah, maybe they can keep track of some of the statistics for you.
Yeah, well, I think they do, and I've been asked by the New Hampshire Judicial Council, which has members on it who are in the court. The question of how the whole ECR is working, which is as I described for you, us taking things faster and trying to process them faster. That's our ECR sort of unit. And they've told me, look, we're going to want you to answer these questions. So we're keeping track of that. The computer system that we probably talked about 3 campaigns ago that I was saying I was looking forward to. No, it wasn't 3, probably only 2. But what we're looking forward to implementing and getting it off the ground. That system is able to answer questions like that. So long as we put in that this is what we call an ECR file, it will then keep track of how many we got and then what we do with them. There are some. I mean, we're seeing them so fast that in fact we're seeing the police officer mistakes that we say, oh, we can't go anywhere with this. This is going nowhere, because the defense counsel is going to look at this and say, you didn't even have probable cause to talk to this guy. What do we got nothing that's going to survive a challenge. So and then we're doing I think in the very first campaign I was talking about doing a feedback loop that's very important to the police. And so we're doing that, and hopefully improving everything. But the challenge is always that new people come in. Whether it's in my office, which is happening, and we're getting a little more steady right now. We haven't lost anybody for a while. But, the police departments are constantly overturning. And so new officers come in and have to learn, what is,
Well,
when can they stop somebody? When can they start talking to somebody? Has the law changed about, whether they can advance a search or just have to stop and let somebody go on because they have nothing to...
I guess that's why you have to review that stuff periodically and make sure that you're on top of both the law and the data that you need. Yeah. But because if you do find somebody who's got caught again with the same type of problem, you might want to try to figure out why what happened to him? Why didn't he turn it around completely?
Yeah, after we arrested him, you mean? Why didn't he get through the... Yeah. And I think with drugs, it's the obvious answer that it's just, you just got to keep trying. You got to keep trying.
Well, that's
to quit anything, you just got to keep trying until it works. But they've done a lot of studies, and we talk a lot about that.
Well, I know,
and that's what the drug court really focuses on.
Yeah,
it's building something around the person. One of the interesting things that I've learned in the discussions that we've been in, and lessons, I suppose, that people who tend to commit crimes have this attitude that's, work is for suckers.
Yeah.
Oh man, are you kidding me? Like, in my worldview, like, work is a blessing.
Yeah.
It's just I can't wait to have work.
Yeah.
I feel horrible not working.
Yeah.
If I'm just left alone, I'll start to work on something. Whatever it is. And for them to just be like, work is for suckers. It's like, man, that person's never going to get out of
that rut.
The rut if they're hanging around with people that think work is for suckers and they're in a bad. So what they do is the drug court and anybody,
they go back.
They start working on that. Mm-hmm. Find a better place to stay. Find a better group of people. Find a job. All that. So they work on all that stuff that's around them, and hopefully that's what puts them on the right course.
We've been talking about that. I'm on that committee about the marijuana issue, and what we're trying to do is look at all aspects of what it is. One of the things in making sure that people who get addicted are taken care of, but not just left until they're so-called clean. Mm-hmm. Hold them, bring them in, keep them there for a while into the program so that they understand they have support and they stay away from going back to it.
Right.
How do you do that? How long does that happen? You know? You need that support that they need because they've they've been with the wrong people.
Right.
And everybody telling them, "Oh, this is fun," you know.
Yeah.
And
you know, that kind of leads me into the thought about what the court is going to be pushing on you legislators. Or I shouldn't say pushing on, it makes it sound bad, but trying to convince you that what is needed is pretrial services. In other words, we've arrested somebody, well, not we, but the law enforcement, the police have arrested somebody, and before they even get to the court system and, you know, meter out a punishment, to look at that person and say, you know, what's going on with your life? You know, is this, and have somebody or something that helps them even get to the court, so that they make sure that they're not just now being, you know, later on being arrested for not showing up, and just, you know, kind of getting themselves into more trouble just because they don't listen. In my mind, it's sort of like the social work side of the whole issue. The court wants to shift toward sort of a social work thing, because it sees, rightly, I think, that a lot of the reason people are in trouble is because of something that they got wrong. In other words, they're not getting in trouble. Ever since I graduated from law school, I kind of laughed and said, you know, criminals aren't like on Batman, you know? Right? They're not the Joker, you know, I want to do something bad, and they're planning it out. And most of the people, and very few are, you know, gang members who are like just sort of, oh, it's business.
Yeah.
You know, they do exist.
Yeah.
No question about it. And I've seen them in court literally saying, it's just business. I didn't get upset about it. It's just business. But most of them are, you know, sort of hapless, and, you know, you know, you got to get their head straight and get them on the right path. And so the court wants to be more toward, you know, instead of punishment, instead of years in prison, that sort of logic, get them social service help. And, you know, whether that'll work or not, I have no idea. But it's certainly a thought, and if it does, then you would save the money in my office, because, you know, if those people have all solved their problems, then they don't get arrested and don't end up needing prosecution. Then, you know, that's two things for us. One, we might need less people, but we'd certainly be able to focus more on those.
Be safer out
on those
there,
people.
too,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be safer, but we could focus on those people who are doing, you know, harmful things to victims, and you know, and do better for victims that way.
do you find that we have a lot of immigrants, legal and illegal, I guess, but that's immaterial. Do you find them that, since they've come from countries where maybe a lot of this stuff is much more common than it is here, media, you know, little petty theft things or other things that get them in trouble?
I wouldn't say the petty theft things. We had one particular instance where there was a cultural thing, I really think, where an uncle was left to care for two little boys, and the school didn't even know that the boys were staying alone. The parents went off back to home country, and then kind of got stuck staying there a little longer than they told the uncle they would. I don't know whether it was I was going to say than they anticipated, but I'm not sure what they anticipated. But certainly the uncle didn't anticipate it. And so he kind of checks on them every once in a while, sees if they get food and stuff, but basically lets them do things on their own, knows the neighborhood, which I think is just an apartment building. And so the law that they tripped over here in the United States was, you know, not caring for a child, you know, putting a child in danger of something happening to him, because, you know, kids under 10 left home alone. It was finally figured out when they showed up. It was getting colder, and they showed up without winter jackets. So the little kids were kind of self-sufficient in some sense. Yeah. That kind of thing happens. That's and then more on and that wasn't too bad. But more on the bad side, we had some who had come out of some of the violence that's going on around the world, and I think brought that with them. Just that attitude of, you know, we're going to be rough.
We're going to take what we want.
Well, yeah, they did that. I think that they were mad at somebody because they thought that person had squealed on them for something they had stolen. Yeah, and then they actually glued the kid's lips together and stuffed them under a bed. When people were trying to find the poor kid, they didn't let him know. You know, they didn't let him get rescued, and thankfully they didn't kill the kid. But so that kind of mean violence that comes out of an experience of a lot of violence around them. Like,
Right.
yeah, this is no more violent than things I had seen. Probably
Yeah.
is their attitude, and so that that got them years in prison because what the heck are we supposed to do with you? I mean,
Yeah.
violence is violence. So, but I don't think you could show it like in a quantifiable large scale. Like, I sometimes look at the names that are there, and it's people. It's the same as the phone book. The names that you see, they're not. It's not weighted one way or the other. It's everybody's kids are everybody's young.
Yeah.
I mean, statistically, what you can I think you can say is everybody's young. Every family's young men are the your candidates most likely for causing a problem. Being arrested.
Do you find
So the fact, the idea, the point is that if they're bringing a young man with them, then there's some
That's
chance
probably-
but that's true of the people born here as well. So
Well, you find your people working more with these not-for-profit organizations that are socially supporting these people?
Oh, sure, yeah. We got bridges here in Nashua.
Yeah.
There's the drug clinics up in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we deal. They're being dealt with a lot.
Is there enough support for extended monitoring of these people that they stay out of trouble or stay?
Yeah, that's kind of a probation question, and the probation department is very overtaxed. I mean, they have a lot on their plate, and I don't know that they have enough resources. It seems, from our perspective, that they don't, probably, because they just sort of take. They obviously are going to triage, right?
Right.
So somebody who's like, it looks like they're about to, be right back in the crime, activities, they're going to go after that person and spend time on that person. And that person is sort of, looks like you're going to be fine. They might be, and then they might slip. So that, my perception is that they're very busy.
Is there any thing that you might want to see done to enhance the results of these support groups?
Enhance the results of the support? I don't know their business well enough to say what they need, to be honest.
Maybe we ought to have somebody on the show to talk to us about how they see themselves fitting into this. I mean,
right.
You got to look at the overall.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And there's several different elements that go together, but if the elements aren't working together, it's a lot of waste of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking, the court keeps calling it pretrial services, which some of the counties have, and Hillsborough does not. So,
How do you get that?
Well, the counties have decided that, for example, Merrimack County has a diversion program for young people. We're trying to sort of squeeze our own diversion programs out of nothing by telling people, here, there's this source, we want you to go get that help, and then come back and report this to us that you have. Where in other counties, they actually have the person, maybe even the county attorney's office is, someplace the person has to show up, and they're told, these are the places, and so.
Do you have anybody that seems to want to help you out in that area of getting that kind of an organization put together?
Well, we've had people talk about it, like people at colleges and stuff who wanted to bring that sort of thing forward, but actually, the
doesn't go.
Well,
we're the biggest county, though. That's what surprises me that we don't have.
You can either lay it on the defendant, which is the way we do it now, or you can spend money. Yeah. And of course, I don't have the money to spend in my, No,
not in yours.
In our budget, I have to spell out, exactly what it is I'm going to.
Sure, and I imagine adding anything extra that hasn't been, running before is twice as difficult to get started.
And frankly, when we had something that was anything like pretrial services in Hillsborough, it was separate from the county attorney's office, because it would be a big office. I mean, if you can do it, it's fine to do it in Merrimack, which has a county attorney's office of 6 attorneys. I have a 22, and how many, we get Nashua and Manchester versus Merrimack County that has Concord. So the program has to be necessarily much smaller in
That's
Merrimack.
right.
It
That's
has to be
right.
much bigger here.
Right.
So if we're going to do it, it would be, I think, done at a place kind of under the commissioners, organizationally, it'd be under the commissioners, separate
right.
from the county attorney's office.
Would
so
it be
that's-
hooked up with the health care, or would it be, how would you, I mean,
I think that's how it was.
or does it get hooked up with the jail?
Well, healthcare is a big part of it
Yeah.
because it's late acts are part of healthcare, and a lot of the things that they then tell you have to do would be covered by healthcare. The discussions you have about Medicaid up in, is it Medicaid? Yeah, Medicaid up in Concord are integral to what happens. If you have Medicaid, then Medicaid pays for all this stuff. If you refused it and all that, to save money for the state, then that would affect whether how you're going to then get the people to those things. And, yeah, it's
But
it's like a
again-
Rubik's cube now, government.
Oh, yeah, I can understand
You're trying
that.
to change one thing and it changes all these other things, and
That's-
you're going, "Oh, we didn't mean to change."
That's right. Well, they don't even think about that. And that's one of my pet peeves, is that people don't look at the possible wrong results,
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you monitor it? How do you know you're getting your money's worth?
Yeah.
And if not, do we tweak it or get rid of it?
Yeah.
And all that has to be done somewhere. And I know the county is fairly small from the relative amount of people that are working for the county versus the
yes.
state.
Yeah.
And the state could do some of these things a lot better. And I think the coordination of some of these social groups would help.
I think if you're talking about bringing something to all the counties because you think it's important, why not have the state do it as opposed to telling every county to do it?
Well, before
That makes
we
sense to me.
end this, I just want to ask you another quick question.
Sure.
Do you see the possibility of having legalization use of marijuana causing you more of a problem?
That's hard to tell. First of all, it doesn't really reduce what we're doing because the system, what we have now, which is sort of not legalized, but it's not as the criminal penalties not as much, hasn't changed anything for us because we're still prosecuting for sale of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you just legalized it, I don't have any idea what effect that would have. Whether it would make people do less opioids and then we wouldn't have that, maybe. Or does it lead them to doing other things that they
Yeah.
aren't doing now? I don't know. But what we're doing now is certainly causing a lot of work. So I'm not going to try to tell
there's
people what would happen.
There's a lot of different things, and we're looking at all aspects of the operation, whether it's for medical use or recreational use or whatever. And my biggest concern is that we don't take care of supporting the people that get addicted and wind up just going down the sewer as far as the way they live their lives.
Right. Right.
So.
I mean, it's a cultural thing more than it is a government thing. I keep saying that to people. If government, I don't see how government can just solve the problem. If there was, we would have done it already. But if we can get people to not fool around with drugs in any way, and we can get the medical people not to be prescribing opioids in as great a quantity, which I think is happening right now.
Well, I think
really
you're right. You
reacted
got to
it.
look at that and the whole picture, and that's one of the reasons they started this commission. At least our challenge is to try to think about all the possible things that could go wrong, or how to fix it, or how to avoid it. So we got a lot of data, and I'm not sure how our report, which is due in 4 months, is
I'd be
gonna-
curious to see what opioid use is like in like a Colorado where they've legalized,
That's right.
and see if it has gone down. And is it practical to say, well, better to use marijuana than opioids?
Well, that's
then-
what a lot of people think, but you
I
can
know,
get
I've
addicted.
heard that sale, but
You can get addicted, and I have a doctor who told me that as far as he's concerned, and he treats a lot of these pain treatment, is he wouldn't let people have marijuana unless they're in hospice.
Yeah.
So, well, Dennis, we've run out of time.
Yeah, well, if we you got to run out of time talking about those issues. 'Cause
Maybe we'll have you back closer to election.
That'd be great. Thank you very
Okay?
much.
Good, very much. Thank you again.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.